What's up everyone and how are you doing today? Welcome to my channel. This is Luna Wolf Healing. I am your energy, spiritual healer, and transformation coach. Make sure to subscribe. I upload videos every single week for your healing and transformation. Now, I made a post on my Instagram a couple of weeks back because I was having an issue with my family. And this isn't new for me and my family. We have a very bumpy relationship. So I put up a poll and I asked if y'all would like to hear a bit of my history with my family and kind of how I am now navigating our relationship. And I got an overwhelming response to yes, please help me out with my family. So that's what this video is going to be all about today. This video is going to be about, dealing with family members who probably aren't the best, So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Let's start with a little bit of like a history with me and my family. So I'm specifically talking about my immediate family when I'm talking in this video. So this will be more based on parents. And so my parents and I, because I am an only child, so my parents and I have always had a bit of a bumpy relationship. And I think a lot of it has to do with, it's funny actually, I was reflecting on this with my partner this morning. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of how I was raised. And this is because my parents were very hands off when it came to raising me. I would wake up in the morning, 4, 5, 6 years old, and be by myself and have to climb up on the kitchen counters in order to make my own breakfast, right? And then I would go outside, find my own friends. I was very left alone a lot. And again, being an only child, I didn't spend a lot of quality one-to-one time with my parents. Even having dinner with my family, we would do it separately. By the time I was a teenager and some shit was going down, as with most teenagers that happens, this is when my parents tried to parent me, and more or less that kind of looked, in my eyes, it looked more like control. Because of my parents not having that type of autonomy with me since I was a child, I laughed in their faces when they tried doing this in my adolescence, and this continued throughout my entire life. There's times with my parents that were brutal. I remember it going really south by the time I was 15 years old. This is when I was dealing with a lot of external stuff, and so going to school became difficult, so I started skipping school. And I remember one time my history teacher called my dad at work and lied, saying that I skipped like 20 classes. It was like 17-ish classes, when there wasn't even 17 classes to have skipped at this point. And especially, anyways, that's not the whole story here, but the point is that my parents' response to my teacher calling them and saying this was to kick me out of the house. Shortly thereafter of kicking me out of the house, and I was out on my own and I was couch hopping, my parents showed up at the school, tried to take my cell phone because they pay for it. And I mean, teenagers and cell phones, it's like trying to give up a kidney. Let's just be honest, right? And so I was like, no, I'm not giving you my phone. If you want to cancel it, go for it. But I need my phone. This is my lifeline. I have my contacts in here. I have the phone numbers that I'm going to need in here. So I'm not giving you my cell phone. This actually turned into my parents, more specifically my dad, having a literal physical altercation with me in the smoker's pit of my school. He threw me down onto the ground and there was wrestling. There was a full-bore physical interaction going on. It sucked because of that, but not only that, but it was seen by people at my school. There ended up being cops involved. I was asked if I wanted to charge my parents with assault, and so there was just a lot of crazy stuff going on. I have grown up with my mother not really knowing how to be a mother, and she very much manipulated me a lot to get her own way. And there's a lot of gaslighting that happened in our relationship. Even now to this day, I get a sense that I'm not really her daughter for the sake of being her daughter. I almost feel like, I don't deny that she loves me. I don't deny that. I do genuinely feel like I'm more of an accessory to her and something to kind of show off versus, being an actual mother and having that mother relationship. I feel like she really tries to be like my best friend versus my mom. And up until my spiritual awakening, I was very much on the disowning my parents side of the fence, because I was in the mindset that it's because me and my parents have this cycle, and it's a cycle that's been going on for over 10 years, where we're like this, we're super close, but then something happens something external happens and we end up in a fighting war. Boundaries are disrespected, you yourself are disrespected, and I would not talk to them for a few months, and then we would start talking again, and then I would get comfortable with them again and be like this again, and then we would fight again, and like literally it was a cycle. So for the longest time I thought that in order to end the cycle I can't have a relationship with them. And the reason being is because my parents, even still to this day, have a hard time admitting their part in all of this and their part in our relationship. So I remember this happening actually at the beginning of my partner and my relationship. This is actually how I ended up moving in with him and his family so quickly in our relationship. And it's because I was sexually assaulted and then had a mental breakdown and didn't work so much. So then when my parents wanted rent and I couldn't pay rent, there was a fight. And that fight led to me getting kicked out at 25 fucking years old. So I unfortunately had the options, like my options were limited at this time. And so the option was literally going into a women's shelter and giving up my dog, or moving in with the guy who I've been dating for only like 2 months and his family. Now, luckily, the universe was on my side, and the partner who I moved in with so quickly is like literally the love of my life. We're still together to this day. We have quite a successful, wonderful, flourishing relationship. But that was a lot to put on such a new relationship, right? And I remember this happening again when my partner and I were a couple of years into our relationship. Now him and I have our own place, and once again, my boundaries was disrespected. I got sick of it. So I did the same thing that I always do, and I disowned my parents for an extended period of time. Then I started my spiritual awakening and I started my spiritual journey. This is where I started doing the inner child work. This is where I started reparenting myself. This is where I started really understanding and getting into forgiveness. And through all of that work, it became abundantly clear to me that yeah, my parents love me. Yeah, they've done all of this shit. But the reason why they've done all this shit, and the reason why they haven't been able to parent me the way that I wanted to be parented and needed to be parented, is because they themselves have trauma and wounds from their childhoods that still have yet to this day to be acknowledged and healed properly. But what's happening is that my parents are perpetuating their beliefs, their past experiences, and their traumas, and they perpetuated it onto me. Now, this isn't to say that our relationship is hunky-dory now, because it's not. A couple of weeks ago, I completely disregarded all of the boundaries that I have created around my parents. And this actually happens mostly because I get comfortable. I get comfortable with where we are at as a family, and it makes me believe and have higher expectations of them. But the truth of the matter is, especially when it comes to my mother, and again, I love her so much, I really do, and I kind of hate that I have to talk about it like this, but this is just the reality of our relationship. Especially my mother, she's not going to change. She's not going to change who she is. She's not going to change her habits. She's not going to change her lifestyle. Her love for me is not enough to do that. And there's a part of me that has to accept that. And I honestly, I forget a lot. When me and my parents are doing well for so long, I often forget those components of my family and my mother, and the fact that, you know, there are those behaviors and habits that she won't change. So a couple of weeks ago, as I said, I completely disregarded all of the boundaries that I've created around being with my family. Some of the boundaries that I've created around being with my family is I will not be with my family past 7 p.m. I will not talk on the phone with them past that time. If I've noticed that my mom is getting too drunk, and trust me, there's very telltale signs, she does this thing where she like closes her eye and she starts to, we call it like, see again, this is when it's like hard, it's weird, it's a weird dynamic because I still love them to bits and pieces, but this is the reality. And the reality is she does this thing where she closes her eyes when she gets drunk, and we call her the pirate eye, like, oh, she's pirating. So like when she gets to that point, I leave. And I've learned how to better accept my mom and her behaviors. But a few weeks ago, we went to a concert. that my dad really wanted us, the four of us, to go to, like a double date. And he was so excited for it that I couldn't say no. So we said yes, and we went to this concert. And my mom, she didn't eat all day. This is very classic of her. She didn't eat properly all day. She was drinking all day. So even before the band was actually even on stage, she was already hammered. And that was actually the other boundary that I completely forgot to mention here, and that is I do not go places, not even just my family's house, but I do not go to places where I don't have my own escape route. So I will generally not go to places unless I drive or my partner drives ourselves, so that we have the opportunity to leave at the drop of a hat for which reason. And that's a boundary that I have. But this concert, we decided to carpool. We decided to go to this concert that's obviously past 7 p.m. And this was actually the first time I've ever gone out in public with my parents. Let me tell you, I'll never do it ever again. So we're at this concert, my mom's already hammered, and she's very, at this point, she's very touchy, she's very demanding, she's whining, biggest pet peeve. She's 62 years old and she whines like a fucking toddler. She's whining to get her way. She's nagging, she's interrupting people, and just being a complete and utter shit show. There was a point when we were together and my mom wanted to go outside for a cigarette, but my partner and my dad did not, and we're also in an area of town that's not the greatest. It's not the safest. So I'm like, she's not going outside by herself. So I decided to go outside with her, and while we're outside, my mom and I are standing next to each other, okay? My mom and I are standing next to each other. My mom's having her cigarette, I'm smoking my vape, and there's these two dudes, and one walks and stops behind me to like my right, but he stops behind me and stops there. We're also in an alleyway, okay? So we're in an alleyway smoking cigarettes, and this one guy of the two stands behind me, and then this second guy starts to walk slowly and walks past, like just like about right here. As soon as I see him here and looking at us, knowing that the guy, his friend, was right behind me, my intuition screamed at me. It was like, get your fucking ass inside. So I immediately grab my mom's hand and I'm like, we gotta go inside. She rips her hand up. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, Mom, we gotta go. And she's like, I don't think that was necessary. I don't think that that's what was happening. And I think you're just overreacting. That's her response. And yet when we get inside, the bar manager notices that we didn't get stamped. So he gently grabs my mom's arm, like a normal, typical person does, and just says, oh, you need to get stamped. And he stamps us, smiles, and lets us go. And yet that's where my mom was like, oh, that was weird. I didn't know what that was all about. Why did he touch my arm? And I'm like, how is it that you think that was not okay, but you think what happened upstairs was okay? Because this bar was also like in a basement. Anyways, that's not the major part here. But she then asks all of us to dance. She wants all of us to stand up on, like, by the stage and dance. No one wants to go dance with her. So what do? I suck it up and I'm like, hey Mom, let's go dance. Now, this is a band that I don't know nor really care too much about. I'm doing this for my father. So like, I'm standing there at the stage, and like, because like I said, I don't know the music, so I'm just like this, just like dancing, moving my hips, doing this. And my mom is just like, I'm like, what are you doing? And she keeps hitting my hand down and trying to force me into some weird dance moves. I didn't like that, obviously. Don't touch me. But anyways, so we go to sit down, and then she starts berating us about taking a photo. So I take my phone and like we take a photo at the table, but that wasn't good enough. She wanted to go up to the stage and take like a selfie with the band behind us. And I was like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. No one wants to go, so I go with her. So I take her and I go to the front of the stage, and she sees that the band has a professional photographer taking their photo, and she's like, get him to take our photo with his camera. And I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are? No. Again, she's not thinking clearly because she's drunk, right? But she wanted me to ask this man to take his professional camera and take his time away from the band, who is paying him to take their photos, to take a selfie to take a photo for me and my mom. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, hey, first of all, how do you expect me to even retrieve and like receive said photo? At that point, I said to her, I'm like, we can't do that because that's not appropriate. But like, I turn her around, so now the audience is now facing us. It's super awkward, but this is what she wanted. So like, I'm now putting my phone into the crowd and into people's faces, and I'm trying to take this selfie with my mom with the band behind us, and she starts freaking out. So I lost it, and I remember at that moment, I left her in the crowd. I said, fuck this, like, I'm done. And then she actually like grabs my arm, like grabs my arm and is trying to pull me. Like, she left marks on my arm trying to pull me. And at that point I lost it, because it has been already 4 hours from dinner to this point where it was just one thing after another. And I remember me going outside multiple times by myself so that I can ground, so that I can take some deep breaths, and so that I can like refocus and like protect my energy. I said to my partner and my dad when I got back to the table, I'm like, I'm done. I can't deal with her anymore. Dad, I'm tapping you in. I'm done. I'm done. I tried my best. I can't do it anymore. And this is when I go outside, because I needed a break, because I needed to ground, because I was no longer feeling okay in my body. And like I said, we had no escape route. We had no way to leave. And my partner comes outside and he comforts me, makes me feel better. And I go back in and my mom tells me, call so-and-so, who was our DD. He's our DD. Call so-and-so because we're leaving. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. I do, and I call, and then we're waiting outside, and my mom keeps chasing me. And I remember my mom doing this when I was young and a teenager as well, and like, this is a problem that she has because she does not know how to let people cool down, and then she wonders why she gets yelled at. So this is exactly what was happening again, where I'm literally hiding between cars trying to get away from her, and she's just like following me around. It was so embarrassing. People were looking at us, and I had to just tell her, I'm like, Mom, you're drunk. I cannot talk to you when you're in this state. And of course she whines, she denies, and all of that jazz. And then my dad comes outside, and I literally am like, control your woman, because that's now the state that I'm in. This is very much my old self that I've been working on and letting go. But like, my mom, I'm not gonna lie guys, my mom is my kryptonite. She's my twin flame. This is a pure example of how media skews the definition of twin flames, because twin flame relationships are not fucking easy. They're not easy, and it's not, fiery passion and like amazingness. It's not. It's hard. It's challenging. When your twin flame forces you to grow. The word forces is in there for a reason, because it's a fucking battle half the time. So anyways, we leave, we get back to my parents' house, and I'm not going inside. I'm like, I'm going home. Like, this is it. I'm done. And my mom's response was, I wish it didn't turn out this way. And me and my partner just look at each other like, you're insane. This is all your fault. But what was more mind-blowing, guys, is I go to see my dad 2 days later. 2 days later, I go to see my dad because I needed to borrow their car. And my dad is like, what the fuck happened? And so I tell him everything that happened, and he starts laughing, and I'm like, why is this funny? And he's like, because your mom said that she had a great time. She either doesn't remember a goddamn thing and was that drunk that she blacked out, or she's in complete and utter denial. It's one of the two. We don't know for sure. The denial aspect seems pretty legit, because that wouldn't be the first time. You might be asking, so how the fuck do you deal with all of this? That's the thing. I deal with my parents through boundaries. And that experience that I just shared with you, I'm sharing with you because that was an experience where I dismissed my boundaries because I felt comfortable. And this happens a lot between me and my family. This happens a lot with me and my parents, where like, everything's going so good because of the boundaries that I have set in place. I get comfortable, and I all of a sudden like am in this illusion that, oh, everything's fine and we can just like be normal. Me and my parents are not normal. We do not have a normal relationship. They're not normal human beings. And so therefore, that was my lesson through this experience, is just because things are going well does not mean that you need to dismiss your boundaries just because it feels comfortable. Maintain your boundaries at all times. Do not give in to them, no matter what the other person says. And that was proof here. So how I've gone from disowning my parents to being able to forgive and let go is because of boundaries. And even when I was telling my dad all of this, I could see the worriness in his eyes, because he's not in denial of the cycle that we have. And so I could tell that he was worried that everything that my mom and I just worked towards was crashing and burning. And it almost was, but I really sat with myself after that experience with my mom. So I once again wrote out all of the boundaries that I need to make sure that I keep instilling in order to maintain a healthy relationship with my mother. And I know that seems almost one-sided, but that's what's super important. And it's super important when you have this kind of relationship with your family, because realistically, if you're like me and if your story is at all similar to mine, then that means your parents grew up simply thinking of you as this little child, and they can do whatever the fuck they want because they're the adults. And I know this because I've literally been told this by my family, by my parents. There's that whole like, I'm the kid and they're the adults, and that's been like brought up to my attention multiple times. So what that means is they don't respect you as an individual, and they don't respect or see you as your own human being, and they don't see you as an adult. They just still see you as that little kid. There have been multiple times when I just started out putting up boundaries with my family versus fighting, arguing, and disowning, where I literally would get up in the middle of a conversation and just leave. There were multiple times where I would tell my parents, I don't receive that, and I'm not going to listen to that. That's crossing my boundary. So if this is how the conversation is going to continue, I'm going to leave. Because I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to be here and accept this kind of energy. I don't have to. Just because you're my mother, just because you're my father, it does not mean that I need to give up my respect for myself at all. Period. And it's interesting because I would say it's been 1 year of me doing this, and it's made a difference between me and my family. My mom is now starting to understand that when I say things, I'm serious. And just because I don't agree with her opinions, it doesn't mean that I don't love her any less either. Because like I said, there's wounds and traumas that our parents have that haven't been properly looked at and properly assessed by them. And that's their fault. That's their journey. It's not yours. It's not your mission to take care of. It's your mission to take care of yourself. So I've had a couple of clients who've had issues with their families, and I do work with mainly women, and so I find it interesting that this is actually a trend that I'm seeing where women are having issues with their mothers. And there's a couple of sides to this. I think there's some mothers out there who get envious of their daughters. I think there's some mothers out there who were never properly mothered themselves, so they more treat their daughters as best friends. And again, I'm saying this because like I know things about my mom and my dad and their relationship and our family that I should not know, and I do not need to know, but yet I know because my mom chooses to use me as her sounding board versus one of her friends or a therapist or her husband. So like I know things about my parents' sex life. Ew, but that's what I'm talking about. That's what I grew up with. And so my mom is used to that. And my mom is used to me, I truly believe I also accepted this back then because I thought that this was the relationship that you have with your mom. And I thought because I wasn't getting her affection or her attention for any other thing in my life, that this was how, through listening to her and her bullshit. So this is a video to very much show to you guys and say to you guys how important and detrimental it is to instill boundaries, even with your parents. I'm going to make an assumption here that no one under the age of 18 is watching my videos. So y'all are adults. You are your own individual human being. You are living your life, not theirs. They may have a hard time understanding that because again, they had this weird autonomy over you. for your life as a child, right? Now all of a sudden you're an adult with all of your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions and opinions. So there's going to be work that comes to this, but we all have it within us. We all have that inner power within us to instill the boundaries that we need to instill if you want to have a relationship with your parents. Some of us may have to choose to distance ourselves from our family for a time being. It may be for a month, it may be for a year, it may be forever. It depends. I was able to not continue this because there was a degree of receiving and acceptance on my parents' side. There was a degree of understanding coming from my parents' side. When my parents and I had the full discussion about a year ago about our relationship, there was a degree of understanding and there was a degree of acceptance, and they received what I had to say. That's how I knew that us having a relationship is possible. It's just going to have to look different than maybe other people, and that's okay. However, if you find that you have this conversation with your family and they're still denying, gaslighting, refusing to see your side, refusing to accept and receive what you have to say and what you've gone through, and if they choose to still blame you and point fingers at you and insist that you and only you are the problem, then I highly suggest removing yourself for some time. The reason why I say this is because when you separate yourself from your family, there's a few things that are going to happen. Number one, this is the most important, okay? When you distance yourself from you and your family, you are going to be able to get a better understanding of who you are without their bullshit constantly impeding on your journey. You're going to be able to start to do that inner work without them hovering over you or potentially setting you back when you aren't ready for it. I myself started doing the work before introducing my family back into my life. So that's all I want to suggest here too. Like I said, it doesn't have to be forever, but doing it for a time can be majorly beneficial. Because that time away from my parents, when I actually started investing into myself, investing into my spirituality, and starting to do that inner work, by the time I was having that conversation with my parents, I was the most level-headed, grounded in my power and in my truth that I have ever been having a conversation with my parents. I have never been that grounded talking to my parents. I have never been that sure of myself talking to my parents. I have never felt so much inner power talking to my parents. And that is what made the conversation go so smoothly, because I was able to speak my truth, stand my ground in a way that wasn't attacking them like I used to in the past. And that's what made it easier to move forward, was because I was already on a different level than they even knew or expected of me. Literally, my parents were like, I have never heard you articulate yourself that way before. Inner work, guys. Inner fucking work. It works. Now, the second thing that's going to happen when you distance yourself from your family, this isn't as important, but it is very interesting. And it's the fact that when you distance yourself, when you block them on social media, when you refuse to answer their phone calls, they're going to be confused. They're going to be like, what the fuck? Why isn't she responding to me? Why doesn't she want a relationship with me? What's going on? What's happening? They're going to get confused. They're going to start asking themselves those questions. They're going to start to miss you. So when you do this for months, right, you can see how it can potentially bring out almost a sense of desperation out of your parents. That's how it happened to me. My mom was so desperate to heal our relationship that she showed up to my house unannounced. And she was like, we're talking about this. And even though I wasn't ready, and even though I did not want that conversation to happen, I was able to say to her, give me 5 minutes. And I went downstairs to my house, to my room, because we were outside when all of this happened, grab a glass of water, look at myself in the mirror and tell myself, you know exactly what the fuck you need to do. You know who you are. You know you don't need them, but you know you love them. So speak your truth, stand your ground, and don't let them push you, but listen to what they have to say, and let's see what can come from this. And then that's exactly what happened, and that's how we're on a better track now. And so boundaries is going to be detrimental when dealing with family members like this. Detrimental, I don't know how many times I can say it. But then you're also going to want to find ways for yourself to stay grounded, to protect your energy. So again, that's where boundaries come in. But I know for me, when I go to see my parents, and especially if I'm not in my own A game, yes, I use crystals. Malachite, obsidian are two great, magnificent crystals to have when dealing with people. Malachite will absorb any negativity that's in and around you, and malachite will also take away emotions and feelings that are not yours. So you're in your own shit no matter what. And then obsidian is a fantastic grounding and protection stone. So when I go see my parents, I have 2 obsidians and 1 in each pocket, and I have a malachite ring that I like to wear. So that's an example. I also like to invite in, before I even leave my house, I'll do a grounding practice and a shielding practice. And I will show you that right here. So what you're going to want to do when you're doing your grounding and shielding is you're going to want to stand on the ground with your feet flat on the ground, okay? So with your feet flat on the ground, I want you to close your eyes, get into your body, and I want you to pay attention to your feet. Feel your feet. From here, once you're in tune with your feet, I want you to envision and feel roots growing from the bottoms of your feet and going into the earth's core. Feel the roots twist and turn through the floor, through the rocks, through the soil. You can see it, feel it, continuing to move down and down and down, closer to the earth's core. You may start to feel warm, you may start to feel tingly. And then what I want you to do is I want you to envision your roots legitimately wrapping themselves around the earth's core and hugging it. Feel into that connection to the earth. Feel that groundedness. Feel how you are connected. Then from there, to start your shielding practice, so I want you to take your hands and start moving them ever so slightly, in and out. Breathe in, hands go out. Breathe out, hands come in. What's going to start to happen here is you're going to start to feel an energy form in between your hands. You're going to feel your hands maybe start to feel fuzzy, feel tingly, like you're going to start to feel sensation from here. From here, I want you to widen that energy and visualize the colors white and purple. Visualize the energy in between your hands as white and purple beams of light, and just let it expand and expand and expand. Now once you have this energy ball in your hands, this white and purple light of energy, I want you to bring it up over your head, around your body, bring it back up to your heart, and ground it back down. And then do this again. Bring it up, let it circle your entire body. Bring it up and ground it. One more time, bring it up. Around your entire body, up and ground. Hold your hands out and feel the white and purple light completely surrounding your aura. Feel it protecting you. Feel how you're grounded to the earth's core, and feel this shield you have created for yourself. Give the energy some thanks, and that's when you're now ready to go deal with your parents. And so those are a few of my tips and tricks, and also a little bit of my personal story for dealing with toxic parents. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so you never miss a thing. Leave a comment, DM me anytime you need any support. All the links and all of that jazz is in the description box below. I am so honored to say that I have amazing new offers. I'm open to Reiki sessions, astrology readings, and tarot readings as well. So if you're interested in anything along those lines, the description box has all of the links for you down there. I love you all, and I'll see you guys next time.